Welcome back to Rashley's BBQ. Today we're going to be cooking up a miniature pork butt. The butcher had cut off a piece of a larger pork butt. It's just my wife and I, so this is going to be just right. There won't be too much leftover pulled pork. Let's get started. All right, we got this little pork butt, probably a quarter the size of a typical pork butt. We're going to go ahead and use this Rio Smoke BBQ Company pork rub. New rub that came out by Jesse over at Rio Smoke. And I tried it on some baby back ribs last week. Really good stuff. It's kind of sweet, a little heat, salt, other spices. We're going to put this on liberally because when you have this thick a cut of meat, you can spice it a little heavier. Let's go ahead and get it spiced up. The sugar in this gives a nice touch with the sweet. I'm going to go ahead and finish putting the rub on this. When putting rub on a large cut of meat like this, be sure and get plenty of rub on the sides. Don't forget the sides. Okay, we're going to let this sit for maybe 20-30 minutes. The salt in that rub is going to pull moisture out to the surface. And when it does that, and we have that moisture out here, we're going to hit it with another light dose of rub. That'll just help add rub to the exterior so we can form a nice little bark. Okay, you can see how the salt in that has pulled moisture out to the surface, which is just going to help the rub stick even better. We're just going to add a little to the top and the sides that we can get to. That's good enough. All right. I'm going to let that sit, let that get moist, and let's head out to the grill. We got some leftover charcoal from last time. Have a chunk of post oak right here. We're going to pour the hot coals around this. Then we're going to add some more fresh charcoal on here and then let it slowly burn its way across. It'll start burning this and get it lit. We got about 10 briquettes lit. Okay, maybe 12 or 14. We'll let that kind of light the post oak a bit, give it some time, and then we'll get out here and get it set up, get started. The vent underneath the charcoal is all the way open. The back one is closed under the meat. On top, the vent over the charcoal is closed, which will cause the airflow to go toward the back. And then the vents over the meat are open so the airflow can go across the meat and out the back. All right, it's settled in about 250 degrees plus or minus. Good clean smoke. Let's go ahead and get this on. That rub gives it a nice natural mahogany color. I hope that carries through as it starts to cook. There we go, put one probe in and we'll let it go. Get it closed up. This is the vent that we're going to open and close to vary our temperature. We'll let it sit right like it is for a little while and see where it's at. Before I put the pork butt on, it was sitting at about 248. I want to try to keep it between 225 and 260 in that range. All right, let's get some nice color on it. First time we've opened it since we started. We're going to spray a little bit. This is half apple juice and half apple cider. All right, that's good. Lots of charcoal left. We'll just let it keep going. Okay, we're coming up on around 6 hours, more or less. I've just been adjusting that one vent that I told you about earlier to keep the temperature somewhere between 230 and 260. It spiked a couple of times, but we got it back down. It's dropped a few times. Sometimes when it does that, you have to stir up the charcoal. I'll show you what I mean. The charcoal will kind of get ashed over, and it becomes necessary to kind of just stir it around and shake all the loose ash down. We might have to add some charcoal here before we finish up the cook. The meat is about 175 degrees, 174 internal temperature. So it's been stalled for a while. We still have quite a ways to go. I'm going to go ahead and give it a shot of apple cider vinegar and apple juice here. Get you a close-up. Yeah, it's looking pretty doggone good. Nice mahogany color. It hasn't started to get the black bark yet. All right, let me get it shut before I lose too much of the heat. And I'm probably gonna add some charcoal here in a little while. We left out a bunch of the boring, repetitious stuff. I've been spritzing about every hour with this apple juice and apple cider vinegar. I added some charcoal at about the 7-hour mark. I went ahead and lit the charcoal, about 12 briquettes, and it added them to the grill, and that's been carrying me through the rest of the way. We're at about 200 degrees internal temperature. I want to probe it in a few spots and see what we got. 198. 202. 202. It's probing really tender. I'm going to go ahead and take it on up to about 205. Right now it's averaging around 200 between all the different spots. So 5 more degrees on the internal temperature. We're going to pick it up, wrap it, and we'll pull it tomorrow. We're going to wrap it in some butcher paper and just hold it overnight. We're right around 11 hours. We're showing 205 internal temperature on the remote thermometer. Let's just probe it, double check. 204, 206, 203. We're done. And that thermometer is going in like butter. Take my big old spatula. It's a big heavy duty spatula. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get it inside, wrap it in some butcher paper just to hold it overnight. I'm not gonna pull it tonight. We'll see you inside. We're going to get that in an insulated cooler and hold it overnight. We'll pull it tomorrow and probably mix it with some barbecue sauce. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Had this holding overnight. Let's go ahead and unwrap it. That looks good. Let's pull a little bit of this and see what it tastes like. Got some bark on it. That's really good. The meat is nice and soft, not just tender, not mushy, but soft. It's gonna make great pulled pork. The crust, the bark has a sweet flavor, but it's also got the smoke. It seems like that rub loses its little bit of heat that it has it loses a little bit of that during the cook. And what I'm tasting right now has kind of the heat's still there, but it kind of comes on after you chew and swallow. The heat comes on late. Very, very little heat. It's not objectionable at all. That's really good. I'm just gonna go ahead and pull this. Then I'm gonna mix some with some barbecue sauce. My wife likes the Jack Daniel's sauce, so I'm gonna make some for her with that. I'm gonna use some stubs. And we just don't have time to do a Carolina sauce right now. But sometime in the future, we're going to mix up a vinegar-based Carolina sauce and try that. Let me get this pulled, and then I'll show you what it looks like. There we go. That's what we ended up with. Looks really good. Now, one thing I did notice in this cook, that was such a small piece of meat that the ratio of bark to meat, there's too much bark. The bark's a little bit hard, and typically you would have just a few small pieces of bark because there would be a lot more internal meat that makes the ratio a little better. So what I did was pull some of the bark off and get rid of it and leave enough bark to give the flavor and the texture that we want. So that came out real nice. Well, I didn't throw it away. I snacked on it while I pulled the rest, but you get the picture. Really good. Let's try some of this. Put just a little in the bottom of the skillet to get it started. Just to give it a little extra tang, I'm going to put just a touch of apple cider vinegar. Just a touch. That was maybe a teaspoon at most. Well, there you go. Rio Smoke BBQ's pork rub on pulled pork, cooked about 11 hours more or less. At around, it ended up running most of the time at 240 to 250. Really, really good barbecue. We held it overnight. I just warmed up the oven, turned the oven off, and left it in the oven overnight. Still pulled real easy this morning. We mixed in a little barbecue sauce, put it on some toasted bread. Oh, so good, so good. That Rio Smoke has a little sweet, little heat, some good spices in it. The only negative about this cook, not the spice, but the cook, was that the piece of pork was so small that the ratio of bark to inside meat was off. There was too much bark compared to the softer inside meat. So I took a little bit of the bark away till I got a good ratio, made a great sandwich. We ate some of it without barbecue sauce. It was awesome. So we hope you enjoyed the cook. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Let me know what spice you use on pulled pork. And we'll catch y'all later on down the road in Rashley's BBQ. Until we meet again, adios. Don't forget to click like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Bye, y'all.